Hello, you're watching 6 News on this Sunday evening. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. The top stories we're following right now. More rallies set to be held to honour 15-year-old Cassius Turvey after his alleged murder while walking home from school with a group of friends in Perth. His mother thanking the public for their overwhelming support. D-Day for one minor party in Victoria as another has to resort to endorsing independent candidates after the state's electoral commission rejected the applications of several parties vying to run in next month's election. It is Halloween tomorrow, but what about all those ghosts from back in May? Questions put to an now Liberal candidate about what he might know about the other kooyong independent. And what's wrong with this image? The coalition accused of spreading misinformation about what happens if you vote for an independent, with less than a month to go until Victoria decides. Good evening. More rallies are set to be held across Australia to honour 15-year-old Cassius Turvey after his alleged murder while walking home from school with a group of friends in Perth. Reports say Turvey was allegedly attacked with a metal pole, with a 21-year-old man charged with murder, as well as assaulting and stealing the crutches of another boy who was part of the group. Turvey's mother is now thanking the public for their overwhelming support as a GoFundMe set up to support the family reaches close to $500,000. Political reporter Roman McKinnon has more.
Cassius Turvey was a 15-year-old schoolboy walking home from school with his friends when he was allegedly beaten with a metal pole. WA police say he was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, which has sparked outrage on social media, with First Nations Australians calling for justice and racial fairness. A GoFundMe has been set up by Cassius's oldest cousin, which has raised $475,000 from a $250,000 goal.
I break down, I get so angry, but all this stuff in between is just healing for our mob and healing for our community, black and white.
There will be vigils held across the country in the next week, including in Perth, Brisbane, Sydney, Adelaide, Albany, Alice Springs and Darwin to remember this 15-year-old boy who was taken way too soon.
Over 150 people are dead and around the same number injured after a deadly crowd stampede during Halloween festivities in the South Korean capital of Seoul. Officials say dozens of people were crushed by a large crowd which was pushing forward on a narrow alley. US President Joe Biden has offered his condolences to those who've lost loved ones, while Canadian PM Justin Trudeau says he's thinking of everyone affected by this tragedy and, quote, wishing a fast and full recovery to those who were injured. CNN reporting that over 1,500 people have been deployed to the scene, which is one of the country's worst ever disasters. Back home, the West Australian is tonight reporting that a new COVID-19 variant, XBB, has been detected in WA amid rising infections. Reports say the strain, dubbed by some as a nightmare variant, has also been confirmed in New South Wales and Victoria. Experts saying, however, the general public should not be worried. It is believed the strain originated in Singapore. It is Halloween tomorrow, so you might be seeing some ghost costumes, but what about all those ghosts from back in May? 6 News has put questions to an our Liberal candidate about what he might know about the other kooyong independent, so-called ghost candidate, Will Anderson. And it doesn't look like Anderson is the only mysterious candidate with questions remaining. Rodling at Holmes has the exclusive details.
It's the day before Halloween, but when it comes to the May federal election, there's a couple of mysteries that still haven't been solved. A number of so-called ghost candidates were running in various seats, with almost no information about them. No social media accounts, no websites, and in some cases, no images. Will Anderson is one of those candidates. He ran in the federal seat of Kooyong, which was won by Teal independent Monique Ryan. 6 News picked up several of his campaign signs on polling day, which did not show his face but did mention supporting veterans at the top of his agenda. That did lead to speculation and unverified reports that he was an ex-soldier, with some online even claiming he was ill. There were reports of a link to Lucas Moon, who was the president of the Hawthorn RSL at the time. He's now running in the seat of Richmond in the Victorian state election, and responded to those claims exclusively to 6 News.
Can I just ask for the record, do you know anything about him, anything about Will Anderson?
No, I personally don't know Will, and I don't think I've come across him at the RSL. About 400 veteran members there, but no.
Brent Hodgson, who was on Monique Ryan's team, claimed on Twitter after the election, when packing down election signage, Liberal Party volunteers removed their own signs and signs belonging to Anderson. There was another ghost independent. Like Anderson, she too had the Liberal candidate listed second on her how to vote guide, which led to claims they were both simply a front for Liberals. But it appeared she went by two different spellings of her first name. The Australian Electoral Commission used the first spelling, not the one on a seemingly real how to vote guide. Rob Humphries, the Green candidate in the seat, told Six News he never met her in person or met anyone who has actually met her. I understand that someone of this name has stood at a local government election. However, I do not know if this is accurate or what local government area. And there was also Narelle Seymour, One Nation's candidate for the seat of Hughes in New South Wales. A report from the ABC said that 5 people shared that name in Australia, with 2 living in New South Wales. Both denied that they were a One Nation candidate. It was also reported she wasn't even listed on One Nation's website during the election campaign, while there was also an independent named Linda Seymour in the same electorate. She had the least amount of votes among all the candidates in the seat, while the other 2 candidates also received a handful of votes. The AEC has told Six News there are no requirements to live in the electorate you're running in, or even in the same state, and there are no rules against ghost candidates. We verify every single candidate who nominates against the electoral roll to ensure that they are real people. This is done prior to the formal declaration of candidates. Whether or not ghost candidates will pop up at the upcoming Victorian and New South Wales election is unclear right now. Lincoln Holmes, 6 News.
It is D-Day for one minor party in Victoria as another has to resort to endorsing independent candidates after the state's electoral commission rejected the applications of 5 parties vying to run in next month's election. And now the coalition is being accused of spreading misinformation about what happens if you vote for an independent, with less than a month to go until Victoria decides. Earlier I caught up with 6 News podcast host and law and government editor Stuart Jeffrey for more. We've had 5 minor parties have their applications rejected in recent days. One of those is the Australian Democrats. Now, they had a lot of success a couple of decades ago. They haven't had parliamentary representation in over a decade, and they can't even verify 500 members in Victoria now. Do you reckon this is it for them?
Yeah, I reckon it is. I reckon they've only got probably another... Well, we'll see. It depends on how they go, I guess, in New South Wales, but I don't think they've got too much longer to go. I mean, they've definitely survived for a fair while. What was it, 1977? So they definitely had a fair run. But yeah, I don't think they've got much more steam left in them.
Now, the only party left standing right now in terms of has not been registered but has not been rejected yet is a party that has a website that is literally just a template. It's Family Matters Australia. Now, I don't think you've heard anything about them. I've heard like nothing about them. Do you think it's weird that we can have the Australian Democrats, they're out, and yet this party with literally no information about them, and I'm using the word literally in correct terms here, nothing known about them, they are somehow still in the race? And do you reckon it might be simply just because you know how Victoria Upper House works, it's so much easier for minor parties?
Yeah, I'd say the whole GBT thing is exactly why in this case. Yeah, I'd say that's why they're still in it.
Do you reckon that we're going to see the minor parties that were rejected, so like the Oz Dems, attempt to endorse some independent candidates? I know the Fusion Party did. That's in the lower house and also Socialist Alliance, that they are not registered, but they're also endorsing candidates. Do you reckon that it's a weird move? Should we maybe bring back the old independent Liberal, independent Labor, independent party labels for them? Because when you see independent, you know, you've got no idea that this person is maybe a member of this party.
I definitely think that those labels were useful. Of course, they're more informal, but I definitely think there's some point to them to, show who they tend to vote with and stuff like that. But you're talking about endorsing, I reckon we're not just going to see that. I reckon we're going to see mergers as well. There's already talk of Catherine Cumming joining another party. Of course, her independent party failed to get registered, so then there's talk of her joining another existing minor party. So I reckon we could see a couple more of those happening before the election. We've still got about a month to go, so there's still time for it.
Now, the other thing is when we mention independence, the Victorian Liberals have been pushing some core flutes out there, some signs, some election material saying a vote for an independent would keep Andrews elected. Some of them have had teal branding, but there's another one Six News obtained. It's from Mildura. No teal there. The colour uses orange. It says a vote for an independent, not teal party, as the Liberals have been saying, would help re-elect Dan Andrews. Surely that's just misinformation when you think about how the lower house voting system works.
Yeah, I think given how the preferential voting works, I reckon it is just misinformation. It's either that or they're arguing that an independent is more likely to give supply confidence to Dan Andrews' Labor Party than to the Liberal Party in the lower house. And it's saying that if it's a minor, if it doesn't get a majority, to work with those independents more likely than the independent to work with Liberal to form a coalition government. Of course, I think that's not going to happen anyway, but they just say it's the only logical explanation I can think of apart from misinformation.
Yeah, it's a really interesting claim there. And also they've been pushing, not just in Mildura, but in other seats, that there's a teal party. Now, I know there can be, similarities to how some of these teal independents work. Compare it to a party. Climate 200 is, I believe, backing 4. But as far as it goes, there is no official party. There's never attempted to be a party, unlike maybe, say, Fusion endorsing some independent candidate, if we want to pull out a random example there. So that teal party claim, do you reckon it's pushing it a bit there?
Yeah, I remember when I first saw that, I was immediately like, yeah, hang on, there's no party. Sure, there are a lot of them backed by the same group, but they are still independents legally. So to refer to them as a party is a misnomer.
And of course, just finally, the Victorian election, we're going to see a lot of core flutes around. You had a new piece out this weekend on Commonwealth Knowledge on core flutes and how that actually relates back to the Australian Constitution. Just go through that for us.
Yeah, so basically I looked at how the Constitution upholds what we call the implied freedom of political communication, which is basically our version of the First Amendment. It's a lot weaker, but we do have it, and how that upholds the ability for politicians to put these signs out there, and why it's hard for the government to regulate that, including when it comes to misinformation. Although I didn't cover that in the article, that's definitely an issue we're having right now, is how do we regulate truth and how do we end misinformation in the advertising, which is an issue we're going to have over the next decade or so.
Former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has reportedly said he wants to attend the COP26 Global Summit on Climate Change, despite the new PM not attending. Rishi Sunak said he didn't have time to attend, but now Johnson has flagged he wants to go on a move some might interpret as a direct criticism of Sunak. The reports have apparently led to alarm inside Downing Street, while the Labor opposition said Sunak not attending is, quote, further evidence of his colossal failure of leadership. Elon Musk has proposed letting different users have different versions of Twitter just days after he took over the social media platform. Musk said that being able to select which version of Twitter you want is probably better, much as it would be for a movie maturity rating, adding that the rating of the tweet itself could be self-selected then modified by user feedback. Now, one user said that there could be different types of Twitter, one for mobbing and beefing with each other, one with minimal moderation, one with heavy moderation. Musk replying and saying something like that would make sense. And now it's Ivan Amelli with what's coming up later tonight on WAMN News.
Thank you, Leo. Tonight on WAMN News, the brutal death of 15-year-old Cassius Turvey sparks outrage in the community, and a leading Indigenous activist calls for the Premier to visit the boy's grieving family. A WAMN News exclusive.
Also tonight, the hospital death mix-up at Sir Charles Gardner Hospital continues, with the family set to launch an official complaint.
State of anarchy. Questions raised on whether WA's North is ready for the summer crime spike.
Why Western Australians will be forced to pay for eastern state power price hikes indirectly. And later, Dr. Andrew Miller's comment. Join us tonight on the WAMN News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Alright, thanks both Ivan and Melly there. Now let's head over to our senior reporter Darby Travers in Melbourne with tomorrow's weather forecast.
Leo, good evening to you from Exhibition Street and Melbourne's East End Theatre District. Yes, we are here right opposite the Comedy Theatre and the new smash hit Broadway musical production that is Come From Away, playing, of course, their final Melbourne performances here tonight before moving on to Sydney and the rest of the country. Now, if you aren't familiar with the story of Come From Away, it's all about the aftermath of the September 11 attacks and how the small community of Gander in Newfoundland welcomed all of the stranded passengers when their planes had to be diverted from American airspace. So a truly beautiful story based on those true events back in 2001. I highly do recommend you check it out when it visits a town or city near you. But right now, let's check in with tomorrow's weather forecast right across the country. And Brisbane can expect a few showers, getting to a top of 33. Cloud clearing in Sydney, 31 there. Much cooler in Canberra, the nation's capital, getting to just 20 degrees. Showers in both Melbourne and Hobart. Some cloud on the way for Adelaide. A nice warm one in Perth, and Darwin warming up to a top of 35. And just quickly for our Melbourne viewers, you can expect a shower or two on Cup Day, but it should clear up for the big race at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, Leo, that is your national forecast for tomorrow. I am heading back inside the Comedy Theatre for the third time. Yes, highly recommend Come From Away, no doubt Sydney. They are in for an absolute treat as we throw back to the studio.
Darby Travers there. A reminder of the top stories we're following on 6 News this hour, and more rallies are set to be held across Australia to honour 15-year-old Cassius Turvey after his alleged murder while walking home from school with a group of friends in Perth. Reports say Turvey was allegedly attacked with a metal pole, a 21-year-old man charged with murder, as well as assaulting and stealing the crutches of another boy part of the group. And that is 6 News for this hour. There's more news 24/7 on our website, 6newsau.com, and on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Lid. Just search 6NewsAU to find us. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Goodbye.